Have you ever made a study plan on Sunday night, full of hope, only to abandon it by Tuesday? Maybe you told yourself, this week will be different. Maybe you highlighted your textbook, arranged your desk, even set hourly reminders on your phone. But when the time came to sit down and actually do the work, you picked up your phone instead. One video became 10. 1 hour became 3. And by the time you looked up, it was midnight, and nothing had been done. You're not lazy, you're not stupid, you're just stuck in a pattern that no one ever taught you how to break. This is the story of a student who failed not because he lacked intelligence, but because he never understood what discipline truly means. And the one quiet habit that changed everything. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear might be the most important lesson of your student life. In a mid-sized city with a well-known university, there was a 20-year-old student named Elias. Elias was the kind of person people called smart but inconsistent. His high school teachers had said it. His entrance exam score was decent. His parents believed he had real potential. But in his second year of university, Elias was quietly failing. Not dramatically. He hadn't failed any exam outright. But his grades were slipping. His assignments were always submitted at the last minute, rushed and shallow. He sat in lectures but absorbed almost nothing. He studied in bursts, 2 frantic days before an exam, then nothing for weeks. And every Monday, without fail, Elias made a new plan. His notebook was full of them. Color-coded schedules, subject blocks, daily goals written in neat handwriting. Plans so detailed and optimistic they could have belonged to a top student. But by Wednesday, the plan was forgotten. By Friday, he was behind again. His roommate, a quiet engineering student named Oliver, would sometimes glance at Elias's desk, piled with half-read books and yellowing notes, and say nothing. But the look said everything. Elias's father called every Sunday evening. "How are your studies?" he would ask, in a voice that tried to sound casual but wasn't. "Good, Dad. I'm keeping up," Elias would answer. It was never true. His father worked long hours at a modest logistics company, and he had sacrificed years of overtime to pay for Elias's university fees. He never said it directly, but Elias felt it every time they spoke. Don't waste this. The thing that haunted Elias most was not his grades. It was the growing distance between who he imagined himself to be and who he actually was each day. He imagined a version of himself who was disciplined, focused, someone who sat down to work and simply worked, and someone who didn't need to feel motivated to open a book. But every day, that version of himself seemed further away. He didn't know that the gap between those two people had a name, and that closing it required something far simpler and far harder than a new plan. The crisis arrived quietly, as it always does. Mid-semester examinations, a subject Elias had told himself he understood. Economics. He had attended most of the lectures. He had the slides. He had started studying 4 days before. But 4 days of anxious, unfocused studying is not the same as 4 weeks of steady, daily practice. He sat in the examination hall and looked at the first question. He knew the topic. He had read it. But the precise words, the structured reasoning, the confidence to write, they weren't there. He left 2 questions almost entirely blank. 2 weeks later, the results came. He passed, but barely. His score placed him in the bottom quarter of his cohort. His academic advisor sent him a short, formal email. "We encourage you to reflect on your study habits before the final semester examinations." Elias sat with his phone in his hand for a long time after reading that. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even sad. He was tired of starting over, tired of his own excuses, tired of being someone who planned to be disciplined but never actually was. That evening, he stayed late in the university library, not to study. He didn't even open a book. He just sat in the quiet, watching other students work. Some of them were there when he arrived at 7 in the evening. When he was about to leave at 9, they were still there. Not frantic, not stressed, just working. Steadily, not calmly. An older man, a university librarian in his late 50s, named Mr. Warwick, noticed Elias sitting with no books, staring at nothing. He walked over quietly and set down a cup of water from the nearby cooler. "Exam results?" the librarian asked. Elias looked up, surprised. "How did you know?" "I've worked in this library for 22 years, Mr. Warwick said simply. "I know the look." Elias didn't plan to talk for long, but something about the librarian's calm, unhurried manner made it easy to be honest. He told him everything, the plans, the cycles, the gap between who he wanted to be and who he actually was each day. Mr. Warwick listened without interrupting. When Elias finished, the librarian was quiet for a moment. Then he reached over to the nearest bookshelf and pulled out a thin, worn book, a journal, not a textbook. He opened it to a page filled with small, dated entries and slid it across the table. "Now, look at the first entry," he said. Elias read. The date was 22 years ago. The entry said only, "Read for 30 minutes. Finished chapter 1. Stopped when I said I would stop." He flipped forward. The next day, "Read for 30 minutes. Chapter 2. The day after, the same. The same for weeks, months, to years. "Do you know how a ship is held in place at a dock?" Mr. Warwick asked. Elias shook his head. "Not by one thick chain, by a rope made from hundreds of thin threads twisted together. Each thread alone breaks instantly, but wound together day after day, they hold a vessel weighing 10,000 tons. He tapped the journal. "Discipline is not a feeling. It is not motivation. It is not a plan. Discipline is a rope you build, one thread at a time, every single day. When you skip a day, you don't lose everything, but you unwind a thread. Skip a week, you unwind many. Skip a month, you are back to a single thread, and wondering why you feel weak." Elias stared at the journal. "But everyone says you need to want it," he said. "That you need to find your why." Mr. Warwick almost smiled. "Your why is useful, but it will not sit down at the desk for you. It will not open the book for you. Only one thing does that." "What?" "The decision that you will show up, whether you feel like it or not. Not because you are inspired, not because conditions are perfect, but because you decided in advance that this is what you do." Mr. Warwick took a piece of paper from nearby and wrote 3 lines. Thread 1. A fixed time, not a flexible time. You do not study when you feel ready. You study at the same hour every day, and your brain learns to be ready because the hour has come, not because the feeling arrived. Thread 2. A small promise kept exactly. Not 2 hours if possible, not as long as you can. 1 hour, every day, completed fully. A small promise kept is worth 10 large promises broken. Thread 3. Measure the streak, not the session. After each session, mark it. A cross on a calendar, a tick in a notebook. Do not break the chain. The longer the chain, and the heavier the cost of breaking it, and the more you will protect it. Elias wrote it all down slowly. "That's it?" he asked. "That is the whole structure," Mr. Warwick said. "Everything else, the methods, the techniques, the motivation, comes after you have built the rope. But the rope comes first." He looked at Elias steadily. "The question is not whether this works. It does. The question is whether you will do it on the days you don't feel like it. Those are the days the rope gets built." Elias walked out of the library that night with no new plan. He made one decision. 1 hour, every evening at 7, no exceptions. The first week was uncomfortable in a way he had not expected. Not painful, just deeply ordinary. He sat down at 7. He opened his economics textbook. He studied. At 8, he stopped. He made a mark on a piece of paper taped to his wall. No fanfare, no feeling of transformation, just the mark. The second week was harder. On Wednesday, his friends were watching a film in the common room. The sounds of laughter drifted down the hallway. His phone lit up with messages. 7 o'clock came. Elias closed his door, opened his textbook, studied for 1 hour. He was not happy about it. He did not feel motivated. He felt, honestly, a little frustrated, but he made the mark. Something changed around day 18. It was subtle, not dramatic. He sat down at 7 and realized he had been waiting for 7 o'clock. Not eagerly, but the way you wait for something that simply belongs in your day, like dinner or sleep. His roommate Oliver walked past his open door one evening, glanced in, and said, "You're always at that desk at 7 now." "Yeah," Elias said, and went back to reading. It was the first time he had described himself accurately. By week 5, the daily hour had built something he hadn't expected. Understanding. Not rushed, anxious cramming, but slow, accumulated comprehension. Concepts that had slid past him in lectures began to connect. He started to ask better questions in tutorials. His assignment quality improved, not dramatically, but measurably. He returned to the library occasionally. Mr. Warwick would nod at him from across the room. No big conversations, just the nod, an acknowledgement between two people who understood what the work actually was. In week 8, Elias broke the chain. His father fell ill briefly. Nothing serious, but Elias spent 2 nights traveling home and back. He missed 2 sessions. When he returned to his desk, the calendar showed a gap. He sat and looked at it for a long time, and then he drew 2 marks, not to pretend he hadn't missed, but to acknowledge the return, and he sat down to study. He told Mr. Warwick about it the next time he saw him. "Good," the librarian said simply. "Good that I missed? Good that you came back without making the gap into a reason to give up. Most people break the chain once and use that as permission to stop forever. You didn't." Final semester examinations arrived. Elias did not feel like a different person when he walked into the hall. He felt the same nerves, the same uncertainty. But when he read the first question, the words to answer it were already there, built up thread by thread over 90 days of 1-hour sessions. He wrote steadily, and he answered everything. His final grade placed him in the top third of his cohort. Not the top student, not a dramatic reversal, but a real, earned improvement, the kind that comes from the inside, not from a lucky exam. He called his father that evening. "How did the exams go?" his father asked, in the same careful tone as always. "Really well, Dad," Elias said. And this time, it was true. A week later, Elias stopped by the library. He placed the old journal back on Mr. Warwick's desk. "Did it work?" the librarian asked. "Yes, but not the way I expected." Elias paused. "I thought discipline would feel strong, like a big force, but it just felt quiet, like something that was simply there." Mr. Warwick nodded slowly. "That's exactly what it is. Not a feeling of power, a quiet structure you built, and now it belongs to you. My friend, Elias's story is not about becoming a genius. It is not about studying 12 hours a day or achieving perfection. It is about the one thing that separates students who grow from students who stay stuck, showing up every single day, even when nothing feels special about it. Here is what most students get wrong. They wait for motivation. They wait to feel inspired, to feel ready, to have the perfect conditions. But motivation is a feeling, and feelings come and go. Discipline is a structure, and structures hold even when feelings fail. The rope Mr. Warwick described is real. 1 hour, every day, at the same time, that is one thread. Tomorrow, another. Next week, 7 threads. Next month, 30. After 1 semester of this, you will have built something no exam can take from you. Here is your starting point. Step 1. Choose one subject, just one, and decide on a fixed time each day to study it. Not when I feel ready. A specific hour, written down, non-negotiable. Step 2. Begin with 45 minutes, not 2 hours, not however long you can manage. 45 minutes completed fully, stopped on time. A kept promise matters more than a long session. Step 3. Mark every session. A cross on a calendar. A simple tick in your notebook. Build the chain, then protect it. You don't need a new plan. You need a practice. And every practice begins with 1 session. The one you do today, whether or not you feel like doing it. If this story reached something in you, share it with a student who is tired of starting over. Maybe this is what they need to hear. Until next time, show up today. That is enough.